Throughout the Middle East, religious minorities are the target of ethnic cleansing. Jews, Christians, Yazidis, and others are threatened with extinction. Well, Gary Lane brings us this look at their increasing persecution and possible annihilation.
December 2010, Tunisians ignited a spark leading to the so-called Arab Spring, fueling hope that freedom and democracy would spread rapidly throughout the Middle East. Those hopes, however, became dashed as the dream turned into a nightmare. In Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood rule led to burned churches and bloodshed. The rise of the Islamic State followed with even greater atrocities, spreading to Iraq and Syria. Minority faiths, now considered infidels, were forced to convert to Islam, pay a jizya tax, or face death. Many Christians, Jews, Yazidis, and moderate Muslims chose to flee. Hillary Miller of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom argues that now, outside of Israel, Jews have all but disappeared from the Middle East.
At its height in the 1940s, the Jewish community of Egypt numbered at 80,000. 80,000. Today, there are fewer than 10 Jews residing between Alexandria and Cairo.
75 years ago, a community of 50,000 Jews thrived and prospered in Syria. Today, no Jews remain. Miller reports that's also happened in Yemen, home to the Houthi militia.
Today, from an ancient community nearly 2,000 years old, which at its peak numbered at 55,000 Jews, one Jew remains in Yemen. His name is Libby Marhabi, and he has languished in Houthi prison since 2016. His crime? Attempting to carry a Torah scroll from Yemen to Israel.
Historically, Christians in Syria and Iraq number between 3 to 4 million. Today, however, their population has dwindled to around 300,000 in each country. Carmela Borishan, the director of the Sussex Evangelistic Association, believes that although ISIS is no longer a significant threat in northern Iraq, its outdated 7th century mentality still lingers. CBN News spoke with her at this summer's Coptic Solidarity Conference.
I was going to ask you if you consider it genocide. What is happening?
It is very subtle ethnic cleansing that is covered really well. A lot of Western world don't see it because they are protecting the patriarchs.
Iraq's Yazidi minority faith group is facing a critical decline. The United Nations reports that ISIS killed nearly 5,000 Yazidis and kidnapped at least 7,000 women and girls. 10 years later, 3,000 Yazidi females remain in captivity. Jamila Nazo, president of the Canadian Yazidi Association, faults the international community for not doing enough to rescue them.
I sit with these mothers and they show me photos of their kids and they say they're in this house, in this community, on this street, in this village in Iraq. And there's nothing we can do to get them because there's no political will on any fronts.
In June, tragedy struck the Christian community in Syria when armed jihadists opened fire and detonated a suicide vest at St. Elias Church. Located on the outskirts of Damascus, the attack occurred as Christians gathered for worship. A total of 24 people were killed, leaving the Christian community in mourning and shock. This incident raises an important question following last year's fall of the Assad regime and the appointment of Ahmed el-Shara as president. Was this a rare occurrence, or is the threat of annihilation for Syria's Christian minority growing? Will Ahmed el-Shara's HTS government make a difference?
El-Shara himself may turn out to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, but he said a lot of the right things to date. But some of the things that are happening really do not inspire confidence.
After the massacre of minority Alawites and others last March, and in light of the deaths of over 1,000 minority Druze in tribal violence in southern Syria last month, el-Shara turned to Turkish President Erdogan for military assistance. He requested military equipment and training to help protect religious minorities. Brian Morrow from the Capital Research Center is skeptical of Western leaders who speak as if el-Shara won an election. That's because if he were to hold an election today, Morrow says it's likely he would lose because both religious minorities and Muslim extremists dislike him.
So who's left? Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood? Maybe he's moving in that direction because it's been so successful. No, they're not going to accept him either because he's talking about normalizing ties with Israel. And even if it's a trick, he's gone way too far. He's taken a step beyond what they would even say is permissible by deception.
The question remains of who will protect the Middle East religious minorities from annihilation. Many Syrian Christians turn to God rather than governments to shield them from jihadist attacks. Additionally, a Syrian International Council representative, Asherena Abraham, suggests that Western leaders must urgently intervene before it's too late.
We cannot have meaningful conversations about protecting Christians if we are not listening to genuine Christian voices. If we remain silent now, this pattern of murder and injustice will continue until the very last Assyrian in Syria is dead or gone, and every road of our homeland is once more fractured and regimes continue to pave over our freshly dead, bloody bodies. A community who still speaks the language of Jesus and whose evangelistic force spread Christianity from India to China will be a footnote in history.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, I wonder where the Democrats are on this, and it just seems to be you can't hear that voice. And whether it's Democrat or Republican or independent, we need to stand up to this and say, no, you don't get to do this. But right now in our country, we have high officials in the Democrat Party, candidates for public office, for mayor, and they're calling for the elimination of the Jewish state. They're saying that what Israel is doing in Gaza is a genocide. Now, it's just mind-boggling that they're doing that and they're turning a blind eye to what has been happening for decades in the Middle East. This isn't new. You go back to 1948. Israel declared independence. What did Iraq do? Declared war, but then passed a law that it was a capital offense, a death penalty offense, to be Jewish in Iraq. That is ethnic cleansing on a scale that is unimaginable. But that's what happened, and the world seems to be turning a blind eye to it in the current debate. Here Israel's working desperately to get food to the civilian population. There was a whistleblower complaint that the UN was ignoring the food that the IDF had cleared into it, wasn't even bothering to distribute it, that the UN was ignoring offers from the IDF to help secure food distribution. Here the IDF distributes leaflets. We're getting ready to invade this area of Gaza. If you're not a combatant, it's time for you to go. And you have all these measures and you still call it a genocide. Where's the call for the genocide against the Christians in northern Iraq? It took our State Department forever to finally recognize it and issue it, but it was in the final year of the Obama administration. They turned a blind eye to it. Where was the State Department during the Biden administration? What was going on in Yemen? And saying, well, the Houthis are not a terror group. We're not going to classify them as a terror group anymore. These things are absolutely mind-boggling that the UN, our own State Department, the European Union turns a blind eye to all of this and focuses in on Israel. It just doesn't make any sense. Truth has been turned on its head, and we need to call it for what it is. These are absolute ethnic cleansing actions by ISIS, by the new leadership in Syria, by what's going on with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. What's happened in northern Iraq is an absolute travesty. And the world needs to wake up to it, call it for what it is. It's pure evil, and we need to stand against it.